Parker Wolfe, NCAA champion. Those words feel great. How you doing this afternoon, man? Welcome back to the podcast.
Doing great. It's good to be back.
Man, that's so full circle. Every time I've had you on, we've talked about an NCAA title. It seems the 3 previous conversations, this is your 4th time on the podcast. You've referenced and discussed inching ever closer to it. And when we talked just about a month ago, it was very real. And I know there were doubts and all that, but it felt real for the first time. What was the mindset leading into this one, and how full circle is it to look back on those 3 conversations and just the past few years of build up to this point?
Yeah, no, it's definitely cool. The last time we talked to kind of, be able to believe that I could win one. I mean, we talked in cross country, and it's kind of up in the air, unknown. There was a lot of new factors, and ended up not doing as well as I wanted. And then indoors was kind of the turning point where I realized that maybe I have a shot, getting second twice. And then, outdoors been working on the things that I lacked indoors a lot, and just being able to close. And, yeah, man, it's good to finally get one. Kind of cool to see the lead up throughout the last, few years, and especially the last few months, kind of just practicing things that, weren't there or weren't as sharp, and, seeing it play out. I mean, couldn't have asked for a better ending. So it's pretty sweet.
You said in that conversation last month, you said, quote, "I think a lot of winning an NCAA title comes down to very small margins. I know I can commit to moves, so it's just going to take sticking on the pace as long as I can, and then a few laps to go, seeing what I can do." You talked about those small margins in that quote. What were some of those factors at play in this specific race? And we talked a lot about this last conversation. You have to have it on the day.
Yeah.
What were some things you tried to do leading into that day to quote unquote have it on the day?
Yeah, I mean, we just practiced a lot. I think the thing I lacked indoors was just, we trained through indoors pretty hard, and, going into nationals is like, we're still thinking big picture. And so it was just kind of sharpening the knife and being able to, pull the trigger again with 150 to go, which I wasn't able to do indoors. And, in the 5K indoors, made a big move to try to, win it from 600 out, and just fell a little bit short the last 200. And same thing in the 3K. It was just like, barely missed the move, and with 150 to go, I was just a little bit behind. And so last few months, really just sharpening that edge, practicing 150. I've been doing a lot of speed stuff with Ethan, since he's such a great, finisher, and he's a really, really strong closer. So been doing a lot of work, just like hanging on to him and doing that for last, I'd say month and a half, 2 months. And, it came down on the day where it was a slow race, and I knew I could win it, whether it was fast or slow. In my head, I had a feeling that either way, I could have a shot at a title. And so when it was slow, I was like, all right, you got to gear up for our last, fast 4, 800, 1200, however it plays out. And I was just kind of stalking the guys that I knew were going to be the contenders. And, it couldn't have played out better. 150 left. Practice, just like we do in practice, trying to go around Ethan. And, in practice, I don't really get around Ethan much, but, I try. And so, it was a cool way to win, because it was just exactly how we practiced. The race didn't go out like we planned necessarily. There wasn't like, an idea of how the race was going to go out. It was just kind of like, with 150 to go, it's what we've been practicing, and just kind of opened it up. And, those small margins were, only beat the 3rd place guy by, quarters of second. So came down to the last little bit.
Not sure if you would have admitted this to me, although you're a pretty honest guy and you're pretty open about talking about whatever. So maybe you would have, but last conversation, not sure you would have stated this. Maybe you can now. Were you sick of being, I think you were kind of labeled as like the next guy up, when Nico leaves the NCAA, It's Parker's time to shine. Parker's like that second place guy. I think a lot of people, I heard the buzz. It was like, oh, this is, Nico's time to shine. And Nico's incredible athlete, not taken away from him. But you were definitely, I think, viewed as like the quote unquote dark horse, and all the stars are going to have to align. Did that put a chip on your shoulder going into the race?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think in a way it kind of helped me. I think it's really hard to be the predicted favorite every time and kind of go in with the expectation to win. So I think it kind of helped me in the end to it's not win or bust. We talked about that indoors. Coach Milton and I, his big idea around indoors was like, it's not win or bust. Like, we're going to fight for every spot. We've got a team here that we can score some real points, so let's just fight for every point we can get. And it was kind of the same thing outdoors. We had a big team here, and it may not have been the best team race for us, but it was still the same idea of like, let's like battle our way. And you know what? If we end up first, that's great. But it's not a win or bust. And I think it kind of helped coming in with that mindset. And, it just all came down to the small margins in the end. And I just had it on the day. So
we talked about this last podcast, Nico, really not having many weaknesses. You look at, the 15, 5, 10, and you break them down over the years. Generally, the winners all have some sort of shortcoming. For Nico, he's so dang fast at the 8, and he's also so dang fast at the 10K. We talked about there's really, no specific thing that you can really use against him. What were the conversations with Milt leading into this race in terms of strategy? And how long drawn out was that? Was that, 3 weeks leading in? Y'all had meetings, y'all talked about it? Or was it like day before, day of, we're going to do this? How far out were y'all discussing strategy?
Yeah, strategy we had talked about it probably since before indoor as kind of the same idea. I think indoor was a big spot where we could learn from how to predict race moves and kind of just feel out races, racing against Nico. We don't get a race against NAU or Kai and Nico. We don't get a race against them much during the season, especially outdoors. They stay West Coast, and we don't necessarily go to the West Coast as much. But indoors we talked about just stalking and then with a couple laps left, seeing what we could do. And I think the biggest thing outdoors was just being the last to pull the trigger was kind of what we talked about. So both Ethan and I have been practicing just being the last guy to pull the trigger in the end and give it a go. So, make the move, but be the last guy to really turn the gears over and go all out. And so I think that was kind of the big thing that we practiced. And, it perfectly worked out on the track, and able to be the last one to pull the trigger was kind of cool to see how we've been talking about it for months and months, just pan out on the track. So it was a cool moment. And I think, you can learn a lot from it, and excited to go into trials with kind of the same mindset.
I was texting Alex about this after your race, absolutely elated. And I was reflecting on, in my mind, Sean McGorty winning the year he won the 5K.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say he was quite in your position. I think he was definitely more of a dark horse. He hadn't done as much leading into it, but kind of that same mindset of people counted him out, and he surprised some folks in that last 100. And then I was like, there's something about Milt knowing how to coach the next guy up.
Yeah.
The guys who aren't on news headlines, and they just they don't come out of nowhere because they're really, really solid, but they know how to perform when it matters.
Right.
Can you speak to that aspect of Milt having his guys ready when it counts, and ultimately just what it meant to share this one with him?
Yeah, absolutely. You see that a lot. I think, before this race, I was kind of just watching back a lot of old races to kind of get an idea. I watched Grant Fisher's when he won. I think that was his sophomore year, and it was kind of the same thing. He wasn't necessarily predicted to win, but, with 100 to go, same with Sean. It was just they were able to just have that last little gear. And I think a lot of that is from we don't do a lot of peaking for certain races. And, I trust my coaching, and I trust that he knows what to do. But I think a lot of it comes down to indoors. We don't go to try to hit these fast times and we go try to chase these records, which we train through so that we can be ready for outdoors and be really sharp. So I think, same this outdoor season, ACCs, regionals, we definitely trained through to make sure that we were as fit as possible, and then we can sharpen over time. And so, a lot of that work was just in the last few months that we did. And I'd never done any of the speed work we did the end of the season. I'd never touched that anytime indoors or even in cross country. So I think a lot of it is just as in the race, being able to pull the trigger last, it's Coach Milt really saves that specific race pace or race effort stuff for a certain time in the season so that it lines us up perfectly with the meet. And I think he does a great job at that. And I think, as you can see, put through his past athletes, it's very similar throughout how Grant didn't win indoors that year, but was able to go outdoors and win it with 100 to go. Same with Sean. He hadn't won anything all year. Wasn't really performing, perfectly. And then right at the national meet, he was ready to go. So I think Milt does a great job at that. Just able to put in those specific workouts at those specific times during the year to kind of get us ready.
This might be a Milt cross thing, but I think he also does it with track where there'll be a bunch of intervals, bunch of work, and then, decent bit of rest. I think y'all might even spike up in a hard rep. I think in cross Stanford days, it was a hard mile. Were there any specific workouts like that leading into this one where you closed in something, or maybe it was all speed with Ethan where you're running paces you hadn't before and it gave you the confidence of oh man, I can close hard even if the legs are tired?
Yeah. It's very similar to that. We do. And now that, shoe technology is far different than it was for Grant and Sean and them. We do a lot of you go and do some threshold stuff in the morning, and then you come back in the afternoon, and Ethan and I will do, see if I can remember. I think it was like a couple 500s and some other stuff. And, first 500 getting warmed up. And then that second one was like, going through the 400 in, 52 or 53. And just like, I'm hanging on for dear life, but, and so a lot of that just like, I never touched that cross country. Obviously we're not on the track, and indoors, we didn't do it much indoors. Not that I can remember. And so, it's just specific stuff like that where you're still getting the volume in, but just you're touching a pace you haven't touched, and it's definitely uncomfortable and not my forte. But working on it, and did a couple workouts kind of similar to that. Just end of the season here to get ready, and seemed to have panned out well. So
I'm sure people can understand this from hearing you talk or other of my podcasts where people talk about their training. You train at such a high level. Even that example there, you're not just running twice in a day, but it's 2 workouts in a day, both pretty grueling.
Yeah.
How hard do you work, and what fuels you for the training? Like how do you get it done? It sounds like such a simple question, but I want to understand the mindset here. Like, what fuels you to be your best self and get every inch you can out of training?
Yeah. A lot of it's like, I think practice is my favorite part of the day. So my teammates, I couldn't imagine doing that work alone, and with Alex coming in from D3 and he's an aerobic tank, it's just like, you get to hang out with guys and do workouts with guys that just motivate you to be the best. And, whether it's speed stuff with Ethan or long stuff with Alex, or just like a group of 10 of us doing some threshold, it's all they make the day go by, and they make it, waking up in the morning, there's a reason you wake up and do it. So, there are days, obviously, you wake up and you're like, I really don't want to run, but, I never wake up on a workout day and I'm like, I don't want to see Ethan today. I always want to see my teammates, and they're what get me through. So, I think they're a huge part, and obviously I love the sport, and you live for the moments, and those moments that are far and few between. So, I think every day waking up is just like remembering, what you're training for and who you're training with, and that kind of just fuels the fire.
Race goes out pretty slow. I think lap like 4 and 5. You ran 106 or so 66, 68, and then you throw on a 71. At this point, I could run an NCAA championship. Let's go. 74, 73, 71, 68. Like these are some of those paces are slower than those threshold morning sessions, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Were you worried at all? Because you saw this kind of in the 10K with Alex. Like if the pace gets too slow, it leaves room for stuff you don't want to happen.
Right.
Were you worried at all, or were
you
calm?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely going into the race, race plan was kind of just like pause when you get off the line, just like get in a position that you don't have to, worry about it. And I was a little worried. I didn't want to be like in the back because I saw what happened to Alex, taking that spill in the 10. And I was like, I don't really want to be in the middle of the pack. But it got to a point where it was just like, you saw the pace slowing and no one was going to take it. And it was just like, all right, we're just going to, we're going to go here, try to stay out of trouble, stay as calm as possible. Don't fight battles for the next however many laps it lasts. And it's definitely, I think we talk about, for us, running fast in a way, quote unquote, running fast is easy. Like, you know how to do it. When the pace is fast, you get in the line and you just go. When it's tactical like that, things happen. You trip, unexpected surges. So, we had talked about it, possibly being slow or possibly being fast, and you just have to kind of, in the moment, just stay as calm as possible and just see, get ready for that big push at the end. So, that's been true of a lot of races this year. It's been a big push and not really fast from the start. So we were ready for it. It definitely wasn't, ideal to be sitting around for that long and having a lot of traffic, definitely tripping up. But, we were ready for whatever got thrown our way.
I feel like I've had this conversation with like people like Elise, like people who run USAs, because USAs are generally tactical and end up winning it.
Right.
I asked them about, something like that 74-second split, which is like just below 5-minute pace. Again, you've done tempos that fast. Like, how easy does it feel? Because I asked people that question, and some people actually say, they'll be like, it's the hardest 74 I've ever run, because you're so like jacked up and the adrenaline's there. Was that easy for you, or what's the effort there? And are you aware you're running that slow?
No, I'm definitely aware that it's a little slower. It's definitely hard to tell. I kind of agree with that because, you're worried about more when it's slow. There's a lot more factors. Everybody's there. I mean, a field of 24 is everyone's in it. You're just getting shuffled back, so you're having to do a lot more thinking than it was fast. And like to what I said about running fast is quote unquote easy is just like when you're at BU, in December, you just get in a line. You don't have to think much. There's no shuffling. There's not 24 guys in the same 10-meter spot. So it's definitely harder mentally to kind of just like calm yourself down and just like run because you're thinking about how do I get in the position I want, when do I go, who do I follow, so yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's definitely harder to kind of calm yourself down and find that like zen spot than it is if it were running from the start.
I feel like I saw it was either on like the YouTube replay or some reel on Instagram. Like some people, it was probably because their runner didn't win that they were rooting for, but complaining that this wasn't a real race. It was too tactical and slow from the start. And I was just laughing. Like you've never watched NCAA championships consistently enough because this happens every single year. Even when Abdi, the year he ran 13:06, and I mean the guys in your field faster than that indoors, etc. Like it's always tactical, no matter how fast guys are. Can you speak to that aspect of just like the tactical nature of the NCAA, how guys will rarely take the pace? And on the contrary, were you at all thinking, or have you ever thought that, or do you think in the future there'll ever be a runner that just knows they're in 13:0 shape and tries to run that from the gun solo? I mean, you kind of did that at ACCs. Did you ever have that thought?
Yeah, that's a funny thing because I see all the comments on like Instagram posts are like, I can't believe they let this go so slow, and I was like, this is like last year I think we ran slower. I think Kai probably won in a little bit of a slower time than that, and there were years before that. I think Grant, when I was watching him, he won in like 14:30. It's just kind of how these races go because no matter how fit you are, I think it's hard to do it all alone up front, and nobody wants to do that, and. So yeah, I know. I mean, when Wesley Kiptoo was in the NCAA still, he was kind of the guy that would do it and go for it, which I would love to see happen again. I don't think I'm the type of person to kind of take it from the front like that, and just like grind out 12 and a half laps at as fast as I can possibly go. But I would love to see it happen again. I think as much fun as tactical races are, it's also cool from an audience perspective to see fast times. But I guess We'll see how it pans out over the next few years and how races keep developing. It's so hard to tell, but I agree with you. You rarely see the championship races be that way. So it's kind of just how it is, I think.
Like even the 15, which is even shorter. I mean, what was the winning time? Like 3:39. They closed in 52.
Right.
So many of those guys can probably run 3:33, 3:34, maybe even faster. So it's just the nature when you get all the best guys in the country. Everyone's looking around, doesn't want to make the move. Speaking of making moves, take me through Grand Blanks starting to hammer from the front. In your mind, what was going on? Was it like, okay, here we go, it's getting serious?
Yeah, I think, I knew it was going to happen soon with like 3 laps left. I was like, somebody's going to go for it, and I'm just going to like try to follow my way up and kind of hunt. And with 2 laps to go, I saw him at like the corner of my eye just like rip by me. I was like, oh, here we go. He's definitely going for it. And it kind of took me a sec to get on it. I was kind of a little boxed in, and I kind of had to make some weird movements to get into the position I wanted. But yeah, it hurt. I mean, that was a hard 57 with a lap to go, and it was just like committing to it. I mean, I had no idea what the pace were running, so it was just follow him. I mean, he's going. You got to be on it, and that was the biggest lesson I learned from indoors is just you got to be on the move if you want to be able to give it a go in the end. And so, yeah, it was definitely a bold move from him. I mean. He went for it, and it definitely hurt. I mean, 90% of that field kind of just broke apart with that, and I think it was a great tactical move, and I think, when he gets in better shape, that move will be even more deadly. So, but yeah, I think it definitely hurt, but I knew I needed to stay on it, so went with it.
Lap to go, Nico starts hammering from the front. Take me through ultimately the move we talked about earlier, the one that gave you the win, but also you're that guy that ended up winning, so I have no doubt you had a move in you before that. How do you like have that patience in yourself where you're probably getting a little antsy? You're maybe thinking if I leave it with 100 to go, it'll be too late. Like, how do you maintain that patience to wait until 150, 100 to go? Because so many of the guys that play second over the years in the 5K, 10K are the guys that go first.
Yeah. I mean, it was just like we'd practiced and being the last to pull the trigger, and I knew if I pulled it at 400, I probably wouldn't be the last one to pull it. So I kind of just, and the way it played out with Nico kind of swinging around with like 350, 300 to go, I knew I just had to follow him, and he kind of made it easy just because I sat right behind him. And I was like, I'm just going to wait here, and he's going to make this hard move, and that adrenaline's going to be going, and I'm just going to wait until it gets really hard. And I think it was just more of an instinct thing with like 150 to go, where I was like, all right, I think I should just do it and like go for it and see what happens. And I went around, and I expected him to kind of give a little chase to it. And the few times I've raced him, he's always had just like another go at it to kind of like hold me out and hold that rail. And I must have just had just a little bit more and got around him. And the last 100, I had a feeling I wasn't going to get caught, but I just because of adrenaline pumping, you make that move, you're really pushing, and ended up finishing in first, which was pretty sweet. And it's just a culmination of a lot of years of work and months of practicing that exact same thing that came together, and it was a pretty sweet moment.
At what point were you confident you had won the race?
I'd say with 100 left, I like maybe 80 left. I had a good feeling. I once that adrenaline hit with like 80 to go, I was like, I don't think I'm going to get caught. Obviously, I didn't know, but I had a good feeling, and I thought I had it locked down. And watching the video back, they were a lot closer than I thought in the moment. And if you see with like 40 to go, I kind of look back and see, and they're still like right there, and I had to like put in another little surge. I didn't realize they hung that tough. So. Yeah, I thought with about 80 to go, I was like, yeah, I think I have this, and I just kept pushing through.
A few years ago in high school, I think senior year, you kind of got screwed over with COVID. Or was that your junior year? Junior year.
Junior year track season, yeah.
COVID was so long ago. It's crazy. 4 years ago. Right. Anyways, high school, every kid, every boy wants to break 4 minutes in the mile. That was something you went after, came up short on. And I don't think you were ever like particularly right on it. What was your PR in high school?
I ran 4:06. I never went down to like sea level to try to get it, but I ran 4:06 at altitude in Colorado.
Okay. So
yeah,
in high school, just a few years ago, going for the sub 4 barrier or coming close to it. Yeah. A few years later, closing out NCAA championship win in sub 4. How crazy is that? Full circle.
It's pretty cool. Insane. Yeah, I mean, look at the splits. It's like. It's definitely. I was thinking about it the other day. Even we were doing just like a threshold thing on the track, and I was like, man, I used to like do like mile race pace at this when I was in high school, and it's cool to see the progression. And I thought I had a really solid high school career, and especially my senior year. And there's just you can tell just like how much more there is, and at the college level, like there's so much further to go. And I know the same thing with the pro level. Like hopefully in 4 years, 5 years from now, I'll be like, I can't believe that I was. Running this, like now I'm next level up, and it's cool to see just like transitioning between each level, transitioning between coaches, and kind of seeing those steps over time. It's pretty cool to look back and just, I was hoping to get close to 4 minutes in the mile, or hoping to get close to like 8:40 in the 2 mile, and now you're closing races and pretty much that, and it's pretty cool to see and see that growth over time.
I'm curious to ask you this: what's more impressive to you? Breaking 4 is not the terminology. Closing in sub 4 or closing in 152? Which one's more impressive to you?
Oh, I don't know. I think for me, knowing I didn't have much speed in high school, I think 152 is probably the thing I'm most proud of. So,
it's smoking.
Yeah, that's probably
smoking so fast. 152, you would have made a good 4x8 national squad. Go back in high school.
Yeah, back in high school. I mean that was definitely a PR for me in high school. That was the coolest thing to see. Is like I think in high school I ran 154, 153.9 unofficially hand timed, but like closing in 152 and seeing that like on the splits and realizing like wow I like couldn't even do that in high school. It's pretty cool. It's definitely a sign of growth and getting better. And again, hopefully it'll continue for years down the road, and I can look back at that and be like, wow, I'm doing a lot better now even. So. Yeah, it's progress. It's really cool to see.
Post-race, what was the first interaction like with Milt? When did you see him, and what was that conversation like?
Yeah, it took me a while to get off the track. I think they had a huge TV break, and so I was kind of just standing waiting to talk to the interviewer, and then getting off and walking down. It took me a while to get out of the tunnel. I think I was the last one out of there for sure. But it was I got corralled pretty quickly. And I had to go into the interviewer area. But once I got out, I gave him a big hug, both Coach Milt and Coach Ian, saw them both, and it was an awesome moment because I agree. I think it's just as exciting for him as it is for me, to see how much work he's put into making us better, and finally seeing it kind of pay off at the biggest stage is super cool. And we talked a lot about trusting the process freshman year, sophomore year, even this year, and I think it's really cool to see it pay off once you completely buy into his coaching and his morals. And it was a cool moment, giving them both a big hug, and it was pretty exciting. They big smiles for the whole day, that's for sure.
You're talking to me live from Eugene, almost the week of USA's. What's the mindset going into this one? And was it hard, or what was the transition like, being on top of the world to then being back to ground zero and taking on this beast?
Yeah, it was pretty quick transition. I mean, it was kind of just that night. I was like definitely on cloud nine a little bit. It was really cool, and it didn't really hit until like a day or two later, where I was like, wow, like that was pretty awesome. But it was quick. I've got my teammates. We went off to Bend for the last 9 days, just to get out of Eugene and train in a little quieter spot. So it was pretty quick. Once we got there, it was like boom, back to business. Double threshold on Tuesday, back in the saddle. So it was cool. I got to experience it with my family for a night too. But I think when you have a set end date in mind, I knew back when we started the indoor season that like we're going until trials. After I ran in December, I knew I was going to the trials, and I figured once you have an end date in mind, it makes it pretty easy to get back in and get to work. So had a good time up in Bend, got some good work in, and now hanging in Eugene until next Thursday until I race and get to watch my teammates race for a few days. So that'd be cool.
What's the mindset leading into this one? Shock the world once. Can the college kid do it again?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that would be awesome. I think this field is obviously really deep, and there's guys I've never even lined up against. So definitely a dark horse for sure going in, and I have very little expectations. I do have the confidence that I can hang with them and give it a go in that final and get through the prelim. And yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think our fitness is in a really good spot, and we're ready to run kind of any way it goes. But definitely not the favorite, and definitely not even close to the favorite. So hopefully we can go out there and just give it a go. Hang with these good pros and these big dogs, as they say. So
in our talk last month, I believe you stated that one more year at UNC. Does this change things? What's the take on the future right now?
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah, no, I'm definitely coming back. Got some cross country
really?
to run.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cross country, indoor, outdoor. We've got some more fun to have, and I think it'll be good to get another year in the system and just keep growing with Milt. I mean, I think with how good our team's getting and the level that we're operating at, I think going pro and staying in college, it's like we're at that level where I don't think it matters whether you go to a pro coach. I think the way we operate is as close as you can get in the college system. So no, I think it'll be a good thing to come back, train with Ethan for another year and some of those other guys, and keep getting better.
At this point, is it like, let's see how many titles we can rack up now that you've won one, or are you still going in a little wide-eyed, just seeing what you can do, keeping the sport simple?
Yeah, definitely would love to win some more titles. Definitely a little wide-eyed. Not sure what we can win. I think, obviously we're in great shape, and with another year, I have no doubt we'll be in even better shape. But so, I mean, obviously goal is to win some more, but we'll see what happens. NCAA is in an interesting spot. We got a lot of good guys in there still. Even with Nico, I think probably graduating, and Kai moving on to his pro career. There's, a lot of really good guys in there that are staying around, and definitely going to make it hard. So get back in the saddle, and we got some work to do.
One final question before moving on to some listener questions here. What would you say to Parker back in like 8th grade, whenever you started the sport of running? Just all the progress you've made, what would be some things you'd tell him along the way? Or even just like a kid who was in your position growing up, good at the sport, had ambitions, had dreams, didn't have results to show for it, wants to get to where you are one day. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing I think is just trust the process, trust your coach, especially at the college level, choosing the right coach. And if you choose that, then trusting what he says and being able to buy into a process that maybe you don't agree with all the time. I know there are times where I'm like, I really don't understand what Coach Mild is saying to me, but I'm just going to do it. And I think that's got me to where I am. And I think in high school, you can get distracted easily. I know me; it's easy to get distracted, staying up late with friends, going out, and I think trusting even my coaches then, I could have trusted them even more so. And everyone has the the right idea in mind. They want to help you, and from any of those levels. So being able to trust that process, and it'll get to where you want to be.
Parker, close out our conversation. I don't know if we've done this before. I thought it'd be fun to do. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I talked to this guy a month ago. We'll see how long the conversation goes, but we're already 32 minutes in. But listener questions, you ready for some hard-hitting questions from the people? First one, go-to smoothie.
Oh, go-to smoothie. I'd say strawberry banana.
On the food note, another question, favorite Pop-Tart.
Ooh, I don't really eat Pop-Tarts, but I guess the strawberry one is probably the only one I've ever eaten. So I'm going to go with that one.
Braden asked, tell me how you ran a workout and closed in 409 while talking.
I don't know. I remember that workout. That's funny. Yeah, that was a fun workout. I don't know how I did it, but felt good that day, I guess. Yeah, so we were ready to run.
Vince asked, what's your favorite type of music?
I like alternative R&B. One of my favorite artists is like Khalid or Dominic Fike. Very generic, I guess, but big fan of them. Yeah, I'd say like alternative.
Take on, this is my question, take on Dominic Fike's new album.
Interesting. A little too short for me. I thought he had some great songs that could have been way longer. Mrs. was great, but it was like a minute long.
I know.
So I liked it. I thought it was really good. He just needed to, make them longer.
Luke asked, if you could train with any pro runner, who would it be?
Ooh. Any pro runner. I mean, I would obviously want to train with the best of the best, probably Jakob Ingebrigtsen. Iron sharpens iron. So, the better you can train with, the better you'll be. So, I mean, any of the pros that are running right now would definitely make me a better runner. So, maybe one of Milt's guys too, Grant or Sean. Those guys are, they know what it's like to go through the Milt system. Maybe one of them too. So,
Jakob DUNC confirmed on the podcast. I would love to see him rip it up in the NCAA. Okay, let's close on this one. Christian asked, which interesting mile would you run? He goes, example, beer mile, eggnog mile, push-up mile, etc. People doing too much these days.
Yeah, I'd say I'd want to experience the steeplechase mile. I've been hearing about that on Instagram. It's just making the steeplechase a mile long and seeing how fast you can run. I have never steepled. I don't think I could steeple, but it'd be interesting to see what would happen with that.
You versus Ethan.
I haven't seen that on my Instagram.
In a steeple mile.
Oh, Ethan wins.
Oh, really?
Ethan wins, 100%. Oh yeah, he's actually can get over the barriers. I don't even know. I've never tried one. I don't know if I'd want to embarrass myself like that, but yeah, I'd take Ethan in that for sure.
Parker, really appreciate the conversation. Go crush it in Eugene. I'm betting on you.
Thank you.
I was texting Alex about this too. It's so funny. Someone's got to count how many times I say it in my podcast. It sounds like all I do is text Alex about you. I said someone's got to put together a compilation of the month leading into NCAAs where I picked you to win the race. That's all I'm gonna say. I bet on Parker Wolfe.
Absolutely.
I'll state it. I'll state it here and now. You close in 4 flat, you're a contender for USA. So I'll be there cheering you on in the stadium. Keep crushing it, man.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the support.